When we think about the basics of motion, we think more about muscle movement than the mathematical and the physical concepts involved. But debunking the concept of motion itself is far more fun and just a tad bit more confusing. Today we'll be thinking about one of Zeno's paradoxes and debunking it just a little. Zeno was a Greek philosopher who had a book full of paradoxes. Today we'll be looking at his paradoxes of motion, the dichotomy, Achilles and the tortoise, and the arrow. Our focus today will be on Achilles and the tortoise. We'll use math and physics to debunk this soon. Let's zoom out a bit to see what it is. Oops, too far. Now that's better. Achilles and the tortoise is about a race, where the tortoise begins with a lead. We know that Achilles is faster, and therefore we intuitively believe that at some point Achilles will overtake the tortoise. But let's look more closely. In the first moment of time, Achilles travels the distance to where the tortoise first was, and in that same amount of time, the tortoise travels forwards a little. Then, in the second instance of time, while Achilles travels to the second point where the tortoise was, the tortoise has already traveled some amount forward. This continued onward. Every time he tries to catch up, the tortoise has already moved. However short the distance is that the tortoise travels, there will always be some distance that Achilles must travel to get to that tortoise. Now, does this mean that Achilles can never actually reach the tortoise? No, and here's why. We looked at this and saw that even after an infinite number of time intervals had passed, the man can never actually reach the tortoise because there will always be a small distance left over. And how can an infinite number of infinitesimal distances equal a finite number? For that, let's look to the board to understand infinity and the math of it all. Let's consider that we have a value 3.99999 that goes on forever. Can this value ever equal 4, or will it perpetually be an infinitesimal value less than 4? Let's set 3.99999 equal to x and create a new value 10 times x, which is 39.9999999. Subtracting these values and dividing, we see that x is equal to 4. In a similar sense, we have an infinite geometric series like this one. As long as the absolute value of r, the ratio of the successive terms, is less than 1, we know that an infinite geometric series sums to a finite number. In this case, r is 1/2 and the sum is 1. Therefore, we can say that the infinite small distances to reach the tortoise actually equal a finite value that Achilles can cross and overtake the tortoise to win the game. But there's so much more. Motion can be thought of philosophically or physically. In physics, this problem would not be broken up into partial moments of time. We are also yet to look at Zeno's two other similar paradoxes involving motion, but we can leave those for another fun lesson. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you learned a little example of how philosophy, math, and physics can all be intertwined.